is up, and it's good.
You're listening to The Extra Point, hosted by Phil Ruskin.
Welcome in. It's another episode of The Extra Point. As always, I am your host, Phil Ruskin. Got my guy, Kendall VanDerBilt, with me. Brother, we are like 9, maybe 8, maybe 7 days away from being in the thick of drafts. I have a draft prep meeting with my oldest. This is awesome to say, actually. My oldest fantasy league is still running since college. I won't say how many years, but if you're watching the show and not listening on Patreon or on Spotify, you can see the gray hairs. So it's not recent. But we actually do something kind of cool. We get together the day usually before the draft, and we kind of go through like any tweaks, changes to the rules that we've all made and everybody's voted on. But the cool thing that we do is we don't randomize the draft order. Everybody gets to pick their draft spot. So that part is randomized. It used to be done where I did all these crazy, like, cool games, and like depending on how you did the season before, you would earn tickets, and that would go into a lottery. And then the more tickets you had, the higher chance your name would come up. But then we basically put everybody's name into a spinner wheel. And then if you have 600 tickets and I have 40, tickets, then obviously you're going to have a great chance. But then whenever your name comes up, that's not your draft position. You get to pick. So I know you and I have been talking a lot off screen, and we've been talking a lot even on these shows about where we really like to go from, what position we like to draft from. So maybe you're hot and bothered for the 8 through 12 because that's you want to start RB, or maybe you're like, listen, I just want to get Gibbs or Bijan and get out. So that's kind of cool. So we do that, and then I've got a draft on Tuesday. You and I have a draft on Wednesday, and we have another one on Thursday. So we are going to be doing some auction content next week with one keeper league that we're doing, and then we have one last dynasty league to get started. Mm-hmm. And then I know green room, I should say, you're already drafting. Yes, you've got a couple of drafts already in progress. Are these slow drafts for redraft?
They are slow. I might do exclusively only fast drafts next year. I'm pretty close. Like, one thing that's really hit me this year is I'm not like, there's no amount of over preparing, but I love separating the player take, figuring out who are my guys' values, like kind of categorizing each player kind of in each round when you get all the tags on them. But then there's how you're going to play the board to your strategy, and it really feels like two different parts of research. And when I put them all together, the thing that kind of floors me a little bit is in these slow drafts, I kept thinking like all this draft prep on where to take players gets like kind of used up because everyone's got all the time. So really not enjoying it as much. But at the same time, like, if everyone has unlimited time, does the strategy hold up when everyone has 2 hours? Like, I'm trying to do I don't know if you do this. I'm trying to do my slow drafts. Like, I won't look at the board. And if I do, I'm making my pick in 2 minutes. That's the rule. I won't put the phone back down. It's just what I'm holding myself to. And when I win, still plenty of those leagues at a 30% rate, or what, that's kind of my goal. It's my goal going in every year's 25-30% win rate. I think that's honorable. So maybe we can get into league settings, but I think the honorable way to do a slow draft is if you see the out on the clock, but like, look, I'm like walking into a meeting. If you do the like, let me check the board real quick, and then like, I'm busy, dude, you were not busy. You checked the board. Don't do it. Don't check the board.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot of theories on slow drafts, and I'll be honest, I still like our 3-round, 4-round dynasty drafts that are slow, like when we do them right in April, right when the news is breaking about, landing spot, because you do get a couple days to digest. And like, obviously, the Dijon Stribling hype is completely out of control. I'm not saying it's not justified. I'm not saying that at all. I actually think he's going to be a great pick. But
what a great nickname too, man. The Strib Club.
The Strib Club,
I mean,
exactly.
That's so good.
But it's like that guy wasn't on anyone's radar in April after the draft. In fact, it was the laughed at, oh my God, the Niners screwed up another one. And if you're doing a draft and a slow draft and you've got all this time, then sure, like, hype can happen. I will say I would have used every second if I was on the clock. and that Genti news broke last week, you would have seen me go down to 1 second left. So we are this close to draft season, folks. Kendall and I have been doing all kinds of series of videos and shows about our league winners, our do not draft episodes. So please jump in on the YouTube channel, of course, like and subscribe, but check those videos out. If they are too long for you, we've got shorts if you just want to see our player takes. Evan, who is awesome, we love Evan, has been cutting up tons and tons of shorts of all of the different videos that we've done. Did you know my George Pickens video did 6,500 views in the first half an hour he posted that thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting there. It's kind of fun.
Team, thank you, Evan. Man, he has elevated this company. Tonight we're going to do values. This is the values show. So this is not league winners, but darn near close to it. If you want to check out our league winners episode from last week, please do that. So again, these aren't league winners, but these are guys that we think are a value. And I just want to quickly, I'm going to throw it to you here in just 1 second, Kendall. I define a value as someone who I believe is going to outperform their ADP. That's kind of like my baseline criteria. Now, the reason I say that's not a league winners show, I'll get to my quarter. We're going to go positionally. My quarterback is the perfect person who I don't think is a league winner because he can't win you a week. But I do think he's going to outperform his ADP. So to me, like, that's what I'm looking for in a value. It's a guy that can return higher than expected numbers, or it's a guy that has that outside shot, you know, the RB3 that all of a sudden jumps up and finishes at RB18, right? The wide receiver that everyone has left for dead that suddenly becomes the number one option in his team and actually has a path to do so, not because everyone else got injured, but because he's actually got it. We'll talk through some of that. So that's how I define value. What is your definition of a value? Because I think it's important for everyone has a different, definition. And I think that's important for people to hear is, how do we differentiate between value versus league winner?
Yeah, look, I'm a math nerd, so labels matter. Like, I know how to add and subtract, but what are we adding up? What are the units? What's the conversion, right? If you're really going to, nerd out a little bit, I want to know what another fantasy analyst is thinking to know if I really agree with their take, right? And how they're defining things does matter. Outproducing ADP, I think, is the base stat there. I also look at it as any player that I feel like the way I look at them and the way I'm pricing them in my rankings, that they are mispriced. Usually due to a mispriced floor or ceiling, like it's like a range of outcomes thing where maybe I don't think they'll definitely outproduce their ADP like reliably consistently, but I might think that like, oh, the floor ceiling combo is just really skewed towards like there exists too big of a ceiling in some, and we'll touch that later on with a couple players here where maybe they have a little bit of risk to them, but they're mispriced in ADP. And so there are some value because here's the thing. If everyone's going to outproduce their ADP, it makes reaching a little bit of a situation. Can you reach on a player and have it be a value? If you're always best player available, very best ball style, where in best ball, you can't really reach that much because you're not creating that much of an unique ultimate build, right? It's just that, but a tier down. So we'll see that. I've got some examples where I think you can even reach on a player, but they're just so mispriced. I'll quick caveat. The later you go in a draft, the more that reaching can still be a value because the values are really condensed in like the first 2 rounds, right? An ADP difference of 2 or 3 is massive, right? If you're saying you're 3 spots different on Puka Nacua than somebody else, you are worlds apart. You're playing different sports. When you're talking about the 7th or 8th round, most players are like their Q is like 20 to 30 spots of ADP legitimately in many cases. So just wanted to add that caveat, but let's get into it.
Let's jump in. I'm going to start at the top here with the quarterback position. And listen, this is a guy, and I'm going to be honest with you. This is a guy that I have never really been in on. And the more I sit here and I've got to take my bias out of it, and I look at the analytics and I just go through some of the metrics and the numbers, he screams value to me. And I want to talk about Bo Nix. Bo Nix is QB 14 right now. He's going 115th overall, which is the middle of the 9th round. It's the 10th, 11th round if you're in a 10-team league. I'm not even going to go to 8 teams because I think that's ridiculous. But your standard 10 and 12-team leagues, listen, Bo Nix is not sexy. He's not Lamar. He's not Josh Allen. He's not even Jalen Hurts. And he's certainly not, this year's everyone. The Chargers are going to be very expensive. He's not Justin Herbert. If you watch football, and we obviously watch a ton of football, Denver's offense last year was broken at times. It was anemic. It was unwatchable. And Bo Nix lost you weeks. He cost you at times. But here's what he did in his last his only 2 seasons. He has very quietly finished as the QB7 both years. So now this season, they've added Jalen Waddle, which gives him a true number 1 receiver, because Cortland Sutton's fine, but Cortland Sutton is a wide receiver too. That's what he is. He'll probably finish as like a wide receiver 3 borderline for fantasy, but in real football, he is not your alpha. He is not the guy that you want. You need someone else. And so the running back room's kind of a mess. We talked about that on the Do Not Draft show of like ambiguous running back rooms that I'm just staying away from. I just don't want anything to do with it because I don't know who it's going to be. And Sean Payton, wrong Sean. Sean Payton's never been loyal to a guy. I mean, look at his days in New Orleans, right? He with the Saints. It was the Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara duo. It always has been, and that's just how he runs his team. I think that helps Nix because now it's more script dependent. Now it's more package specific. So if you know you've got third and medium, Bo Nix, and you see Jonah Coleman on the field, that's an extra outlet to actually pass the ball if you take away, Sutton, and if you take away Waddle. So that helps Nix in my mind. Listen, he's not a league winner because he's not going to win you a week. This is not a player that's going to score 35 fantasy. But like Jared Goff can win you a week. Dak Prescott can win you a week. They can go out and put up 32 points. They can have 400 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. We've seen it happen. I don't know, and I'll pull it here just so I can fact check myself. But I don't know that there's a time. Let me go back a season. Yeah. Bo Nix didn't even have a 300-yard passing game last season, and his highest passing touchdown game was against Dallas, where he threw for 247 and 4. He threw for 206 and 3 against Indianapolis last year. So he's not going to win you a week. He's not going to be he's not a league winner. But if I'm going through 6 to 7 rounds and just completely loaded at the running back and the wide receiver position, or I want to go grab one of these early tight ends and I miss out on someone that is a value at the 4th, 5th round because I want to get a Colston Loveland or a Tyler Warren, and I need an extra running back or a receiver for depth, Bo Nix is a screaming value in the 9th round because here's what he most likely is going to do. He's going to outperform his ADP. He's probably, this is what he's done the last 2 years, going to give you 3,800 yards with 26 touchdowns. And he'll probably give you 3 to 4 extra touchdowns on the ground with his legs. And in the 9th round, that's phenomenal value. So if somebody goes for Dak, or I know you and I talked a lot about Dak and about Goff on the League Winners show, and somebody's going to pull the trigger there in the 8th round, or you get sniped even in the 9th with those 2 guys. I assume Dak will go around earlier, right? But to me, that's where I'm saying, all right, where can I still find value? Because in the 9th round, I'm looking at players at the quarterback position. Brock Purdy, I really like. Purdy's probably going to go earlier. Justin Herbert is not going to be there. Dak's not going to be there. Jackson Dart, Caleb Williams, like these are the guys that are going ahead of him in ADP. They're not going to be there in the 9th. So would I rather have, and let's play a game here for 1 second, Kendall. J.K. Dobbins or Bo Nix?
Bo Nix.
Right. Jordan Mason, Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix.
Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman, Huge, Bill, Tony Pollard. Like these are the names that are going in the 9th round, in the 8th to 9th round where Bo Nix is going. They're just
replaceable. There's enough of them.
Exactly.
That you can always find your next favorite a round later, but that round is just the same tier for you, right? Yeah.
But it's guys that are going to get you 7 to 8 points max a week. It's flex guys. I would much rather take a shot on a later round quarterback and load up on a much higher ceiling receiver. Like I said, tight end, one of the skill position guys. To me, Bo Nix at QB 14, I'll use your definition. That's a misprice. So the guy that's been QB 7 the last 2 years isn't even going as a QB 1. Why? Because he hasn't passed the eye test. Because the consistency metrics are awful. Because Denver the last 2 seasons, like I said at the beginning of this take, at times was unwatchable. Add in Jalen Waddle, add in another year in a Sean Payton offense. I think Bo Nix is the definition of value at the quarterback position. He's not a league winner. He's certainly not someone that's on my do not draft list. I think he's a great value and a great price at QB 14. It's not someone I'm targeting, but he's absolutely someone that I'm paying attention to. If all of my plans go awry, I know I've got probably a pretty easy safety valve of like, shoot, I didn't get any of the quarterbacks I wanted. great, no problem. I've got Knicks, and I'd still feel okay there because I know I got better value somewhere else. So who do you have for us at the quarterback position, Kendall?
So we did talk about Dak on the league winner show. And by the way, I want to separate this. I really think you can do 2 full segments on this based on 4-point passing touchdown versus 6, because I think you're gonna play the position a little bit differently when you approach those 2 different drafts. This is mostly a 6-point passing touchdown take. Our league winners were kind of based more on 4-point passing touchdown. Just a quick recap. I'm really in on Jalen Hurts. I'm really in on Trevor. I'm actually rising on Caleb. Everyone's kind of in on the same big group. Like, who doesn't love Herbert, right? Like, in really competitive leagues, I like any of those rushing guys, or I'm going with the same rushing guys that everyone's going with late, right? But that's kind of a rote take, and we don't got to go into too much nuance there. The rushing quarterbacks are a cheat code, and I'm just going to get one of them. In 6-point, so we talked about Dak, and for all the reasons that Dak is great, what I want to talk about is I think Dak is essentially cheap Joe Burrow. And if you keep scaling that down, what's the common denominator? I think in 6-point passing touchdowns, I'm okay not winning the league every time. But what I do want to do is have a easily projected value. And the best way to do that is just betting on a great offense, right? We've talked about this with like Jared Goff being a great safe pick because you can never lose your draft with Jared Goff because the Detroit Lions offense in the NFC North, that's probably going to have a pretty good floor no matter what week to week, right? So it's this different version of that take, and it was just it's Matt Stafford. This is the league MVP right now that I'm talking about. In casual leagues, I do think he comes off the board a little bit earlier. So this is a better take when it is more of an industry league where everyone waits a little bit. In casual leagues, Dak goes like in the 7th usually. And honestly, he's not a bad click there. But in more competitive leagues, I see him go in like the 9 and 10 when everyone pushes quarterbacks down. At that point in time, at the same price, I'm really, really happy with Matt Stafford. We're drafting Joe Burrow because we think, oh my goodness, look at the wide receiver room. Look what it unlocks. It could be exploded. We've seen that before, right? It's the same thing we've seen with Dak, like always being a top 5 QB because look at his weapons and look what he does. Well, Matt Stafford he's got the veteran weapon that he is perfectly in sync with, like a head coach, quarterback, wide receiver combo that they have there with Devontae Adams, McVay, and Stafford. That, I think, is one of the easiest outside of injury. Like, yeah, that's going to work. Yeah. Like, if you tell me I have to wake up tomorrow and say that, no, everyone's healthy and that doesn't work somehow, you're still sleeping. I don't buy it. I don't buy there's enough risk in that, right? Health maybe is a thing. And Puka's awesome. I'm a little bit below market on Puka, but still phenomenal and gets it done. I'm kind of a Terrence Ferguson guy too, but the whole point is just bet on great offenses. When Patrick Mahomes had Tyreek Hill and like weapons, that was the easiest 101 or top 3 quarterback pick there was, right? It was it was betting on the offense. Why are we so comfortable with Patrick Mahomes outside of the top 15 QBs in most rankings that I see, mine included? It's Patrick Mahomes, but we're just betting that the offensive ecosystem and the projectable offense just ain't there, and no matter how good you are. And Stafford, you can just say, yep, literally a good RB1 and 2, even if one goes down, we're going to move the chains, right? But neither aren't like league winners that identify the team. So the run game might be good, and I'm very okay with that. I think the Bears will have a good run game. It's not going to make Caleb any worse. Your take on Bo Nix, we mentioned that Jalen Waddle really unlocks a better floor ceiling combination. The offense should work better with good pieces, right? So close your eyes and just say, hey, you can almost never go wrong outside of injury with drafting Matt Stafford, those weapons, that head coach, and a team that absolutely knows it's in a window of win or go home. Like, we're not running this back otherwise. So, I think Matt Stafford is an underrated pick this year, and he's cheaper Joe Burrow and cheaper Dak Prescott for the exact same reasons you draft those guys. That's why he's a value for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything we do on this show predicates health. So I don't think there's a time when you can be like, oh, like, don't, this guy could be injured. Like, anybody can get injured on any play. So I agree with you. Matt Stafford is a great value, and he always has been. It's the Jared Goff, Matt Stafford combo every single year. It's the inverse relationship. You've got early first round receivers, second, third round receivers with a double-digit round quarterback. So this next one scares me a little bit, but it's a value show. It's not a league winners show. So I want to talk about the running back position here, and I want to talk about Marshawn Lloyd. And I'll be honest, there's not a lot to go off of, guys. Like, he's the RB 57 today. That's going to rise over the next week because the news about Jacobs' injury. Now there's potential that, the Packers organization coming out saying, well, we're preparing for a potential suspension. It's not guaranteed, but like it could happen. Marshawn Lloyd is going as the RB57, 211th overall at the 17th round. Most leagues are 15 rounds. That's basically undrafted. Now, I'm
thinking about taking him at my next pick in a live draft right now.
What round? Let's talk it out. What round are you in?
So based on where I'm seeing like right now, and this is also this is a competitive league. It's not super elite industry people, but there are like, hey, I pay money for subscriptions. I'm invested in fantasy. I know what I'm doing, right? Like competitive, like everyone's trying to win. I just took Matthew Golden at the 10-8 because I went super heavy running back, right? So I needed to take wide receiver there. I actually legitimately considered taking Marshawn Lloyd there, and based on what's available, I think I played the ADP gamer. I think he's coming back to me in the 11th. Yeah, I don't think he's coming back to me in 12 though, just based on how I'm seeing the favored running back targets go significantly higher because all the unfun picks around them just stay on the board forever and go massively below ADP actually. So if I were to just I'm looking at two different draft boards actually right now, I just flipped over to another one. My estimation, if I were to give one only because I'm a real competitive drafter, is on a real board asking people to make a decision. We're on like a 2-hour pick clock. So normally catch your phone, you still got to make a pick. I think the floor is probably around 12. If you need to leave every draft with him 11, I think he's probably going to go in the 12. Probably won't leave the 12, 13 turn.
I still think that's a value. I mean, look, I just pulled up.
I think so too.
I pulled up the Do Not Draft show list. Josh Jacobs is in there for you, Kendall, as the RB. We gave 3 takes each, 3 different positional takes. He was one of your running backs to not draft. I'm almost always out on Josh Jacobs because it's hard for me. Last year I was in more so last year because the price was a little bit lower. But look, here's what we know about Josh Jacobs. He's another year older. He's injured and not practicing right now. We don't know what's going on with this suspension. I'm listening to a podcast earlier today where they're talking about maybe the suspension comes at the end of this investigation and it's week 3, week 4. It's not guaranteed that if he plays week 1 that he's got through the season and all of a sudden he's just good to go. So I think there's a real, put it this way, I haven't started my drafts yet. I don't start until Tuesday next week. I talked about at the top of the show. Josh Jacobs is off my board right now. I don't care where he's at. Like, look, he's in the 6th round, then fine. But like, that's never going to happen, right? But if I'm at the 2-3 turn, which is where he is going right now, the running backs I like in that region, the receivers I like in that region. Like, there's just no way that I'm going to actually put, my money, literal money, into the hope that Josh Jacobs is healthy, ready to go, and there's no issues off the field. So here's what I do know about Green Bay. They feature one running back, and Jacobs is currently it. If he gets suspended, he's currently injured. We can't figure all that out. Lloyd's looked great in preseason. He's got one NFL game. We've waited 3 years for this player to actually participate in pro football. And so that's the challenge. That's why this is a value show. This is almost a sleeper pick, if you will. At the end of the day, what do we know about Green Bay's wide receivers? We don't know who the wide receiver one is. Everyone and their grandmother assumes that it is Christian Watson, and it probably is Christian Watson. But Christian Watson has never played a full season. Romeo Doubs is gone. Tucker Kraft is healthy. He'll probably be out there week 1, but how healthy is he? Is he going to be the dominant Tucker Kraft we saw for that stretch last season before the ACL, or is he going to start slowly? I know that Chris Brooks is not a great running back. It doesn't sound like they've signed anyone off the street, and it sounds like, if I read in between the lines, their plan is not to sign someone until they know more about this potential Jacobs suspension, which means if Marshawn Lloyd gets the goal line work and he gets 30 to 40% snap share, if Jacobs misses any time, whether through suspension or injury, that's potentially RB2 numbers, because this is a good offense. This is a LaFleur offense. Jordan Love's not a league winner, and he's not somebody that I'm actively targeting, but he's a competent quarterback. They have a good defense, but now I would say it's a decent defense because Micah's not going to be out there for a while.
Yeah, he's not
he's not healthy. So what does that tell us? This is a team that's going to be chasing points. This is a division where you're going to have to play defense by scoring offensive points. That's how you're going to have to play defense in certain weeks. You got to play the Lions. You got to play the Bears. I mean, Ben Johnson's talking about, I want to be the highest scoring offense of all time. So if I can get a Marshawn Lloyd in the 11th round, that's free. You will know within 2 weeks whether you can keep Marshawn Lloyd or whether you need to cut bait and go and find the hot waiver wire guy that week. And you need to spend 20, 30, 40% of your fab to go and change him out. But I want to just say this, and I will finish. If Marshawn Lloyd can, I know it's an if, but if he can stay healthy, I think he has real relevance even if Jacobs is there. And if Jacobs misses any time, you might be getting an RB2. You might be getting the RB24 for free. For absolutely nothing. And I think that's the definition of a value of a guy that he has a path to relevance on a good offense that we like. There is no committee competition. Like if J.K. Dobbins gets hurt in Denver, you have 2 guys that are up next and you don't know which one it is. And it's probably still split. So give me Marshawn Lloyd in the 12th, give me him in the 11th as a free value back, because you know that the Kenny Gainwells, the Tyler Algiers, the Blake Corums, those guys are going in rounds 9 and 10. You got 2 boards in front of you. Tell me that those guys are already off.
Well, that's exactly. Well, this is what I was going to bring up. If you want to play the game, I'll flip it back. I'm looking at the board. I mean, it's a live draft board, so I'll even go into like actual picks that happen, but on sleeper ADP. Okay, it's like where I'm looking at the board right now. Okay, the backs right above him. So if you're looking at sleeper, that's where you're doing your draft, right? You're looking down the board. You're looking at all the picks, right? Okay. Kalen Black, right, for the 49ers. I think we still like Lloyd.
I would take Lloyd.
But you'll kind of see that. You'll see the tier. Like this is kind of just when you kind of list all the names. Kind of, it's less one by one, right? Because you might say Lloyd. But here's the tier, right? Brian Robinson, Pacheco, Tajay Spears, Tank Bigsby, Keaton Mitchell. I kind of like Mike Washington. I kind of like Kamara. But we're talking Bigsby, Spear, Pacheco. Guys that we think like, okay, some of them have a little bit of conditional value, but it's almost all handcuff, and the guy above him is fantastic. But it just doesn't. These are again going above him, right? You can go a little bit farther. Guys that were already drafted. I don't know. Tyrone Tracy went a little earlier. Jonah Coleman, Woody Marks, and even if you like some of these guys, that was the 10th round, right? Yeah. In the 8th round, you've got Corum, Harvey. I took Algier in the 8th because
Algier, guy, I was gonna say Algier and
Aaron Jones.
Gainwell.
If you look at those guys in the 8th, it's like, okay, yeah, they're probably low end flexes or injuries. You're getting a 2 to 3 round discount on that, and you'll own them almost 100% of the time. I think to your point, this is one of those like, yeah, he's a pure value because if he's going around the same area that Tajay Spears is going, like, yeah, I'm gonna reach for him a little bit.
Yeah. 100%.
Like, what are we doing? Like, tell me here. My take on him is like he's had a good training camp his entire career. Have you ever heard of a bad training camp from Marshawn Lloyd?
Nope, but that's the whole problem is I just read you his career stats. You ready? I'll do it again so that everyone can hear it. 1 game, 6 for 15 and 0. That means in a 3-year career, Marshawn Lloyd has gained 15 more yards in a professional football game than you and I have. Let that sink in.
That's wild. Yeah, I think he's closer to a Blake Corum. He's closer to a Jonathan Brooks, and he's not that talented, but he's close enough to where he should be in snap share. And that team's got a plan for the future a little bit. I will admit, I'll throw the scare. The scare here is that Austin Eckler is a name that still hasn't signed, and in my opinion, that's a reality I'm looking at.
Great name. Yep, because Najee's gone. I was just thinking, I was like, as I was doing my take, I thought to myself, like, okay, as a speaking, and I went, all right, if Jacobs gets injured or it gets suspended, they're going to sign someone. There's no way they're going to roll with Chris Brooks and Marshawn Lloyd. That's a given. Okay, fine. But who? And Austin Eckler was the first name that I could think. I mean, like, literally, who else is out there? What are you going to do? You're going to call Adrian Peterson and see if he wants to come play football for a week? Like it. So
Josh Dobbs, play some running back. Let's go.
I mean, listen, Phillip Rivers could probably do it. He's 400 years old. You know what I mean?
What's Philip Lindsay doing these days, man?
God, Philip Lindsay.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm watching a lot of NFL trivia shows, and I'm like, oh, man, the back of the day.
Probably working at State Farm, selling some insurance. So I hate to say that, but let's talk about another running back, Kendall. Who you have for us? That's a value because I know the name, but this one's a good one.
Yeah, let's talk about my boy Kenny Kenny Gainwell. First of all, you're going to make some lists. You're going to make some lists of mine if you've got the Kenny G somewhere in your name. Now, it was an old nickname of mine in some circles back in the day, and Kenny Galladay was a wide receiver I unfortunately had for a little while there. So this is the new and improved Kenny G here. I really started to rise on Kenny Gainwell when me and you started really diving into the draft boards, and we figured out that in a lot of formats and basically in all of our PPR formats. We're in trouble at running back. We really needed to figure that out a little bit because based on some picks, you just had to go wide receiver because it was just two best player available. But then we got into some real dicey situations where BPA was like, we're drafting a best ball team where we have 4 wide receivers through 4. It's always the best pick. What are we going to do? So I'm like, okay, in the strongest drafts where I think RBs are mainstream creeping up, what am I going to try to play the catch-up game in some circumstances? Because one of the big things is don't chase the mainstream strategy if it's eating you alive, right? You can't be the worst to the favored strategy. You kind of have to pivot at that point because you're just a tier below everybody else. And I had to start figuring out what I'm going to do if I get boxed out of running back in some weird spots, particularly if you're in pick 3 through 5 or 6, and maybe McCaffrey goes a little earlier than anticipated, and all of a sudden you're taking a wide receiver and probably in 1 and 3 in many cases. So when I was looking for later running backs, Kenny G just started to smash. And as I'm kind of building my thoughts and takes on him, he was just the leading receiver for his last team. One to good team, one to good offense, but an NFL team with NFL caliber wide receivers. And he was still just the most usable piece in that entire offense, including the backfield, which I think is pretty interesting. Here's what I think. He's on the Bucs. Okay. I think we have a lot of injuries to the wide receivers over there, but Baker's healthy and he's got a hell of a chip on his shoulder with the contract situation. I think he wants to go make something happen. I think Kenny Gainwell is the type of player that can get on the field a lot. You got a passing down back, he's great. Got a goal line scenario, he's double threat. You're not really advertising one or another when you put him on the field because he can do a lot of things. I remember watching him in some situations back on the Eagles. And he had good vision. He was a good runner. I mean, yeah, they had a great offensive line. Anybody probably could have been good. But I've seen running backs with a good offensive line that still look kind of mid. And he was just fantastic. So here's a situation where you've got Bucky Irving, couple mental issues on top of kind of the Xavier Worthy, can't stay healthy, always getting a little bit banged up. He's starting to remind me of Jalen Waddle, where he gets banged up in the game, and you're like, I just wish you were in or out because I got a lineup to set, bud, and that's frustrating. I think here's a take people aren't thinking of though. They think it's a big 3 committee system, but I honestly think Kenny Gainwell is such a better player than Sean Tucker that there's just a good chance when Sean Tucker's on the field, you're kind of advertising that he's gonna run it. Probably up the gut. He's not a very nuanced player. I think Gainwell could just be a better back. And that situation, he could actually earn more goal lines than Bucky. And all of a sudden, there's a scenario where he's actually a smarter pass catcher in 2-minute drills than Bucky, and he just earns 50% of the playing time. Their number 1 wide receiver is banged up. Their number 2 wide receiver is technically a little bit banged up. And Chris Godwin's the only healthy player on the wide receiver, crew right now outside of Ted Hurst. There's plenty of worlds where one guy's injured and one guy gets injured mid-game. And all of a sudden, Kenny Gainwell is actually running real routes. Like there are so many paths to relevance in an offensive system that we already like the quarterback. And he's just going a little bit too cheap for what he's bringing to the table. I think he's actually a slightly more upside play than Jaylen Warren. People draft Jaylen Warren thinking they're getting a particular archetype, but that's kind of a nasty situation. I think it's nastier, and I'm really off of Dowdle in my opinion. I think Kenny Gainwell brings the best of both of those situations into a package, but he's actually going later than that situation. So for me, he's a value in that situation.
I think you bringing up the Pittsburgh guys is the perfect example of what a value is because it's, first of all, the Pittsburgh guys are the absolute definition of dead zone running back. Run for the hills, man. Stay away. I mean, we didn't talk about those guys on the Do Not Draft show because I just lumped Washington, Denver, Pittsburgh, kind of all those, Minnesota. I just lumped all those guys of like, they're all the same. Just skip them all. Let someone else make the mistake and go get, a value or get a different, positional pivot in that range. I would also rather have Kenny Gainwell than either of the Pittsburgh guys because at least I know what I'm getting. I know on paper he is not the starter. I know that. But I don't know who the starter is in Pittsburgh. I don't. I know who I think it is. I know who I think Aaron Rodgers trusts. But it's Mike McCarthy. You don't know. It's a brand new team. Or a brand new coaching staff. So Gainwell is phenomenal. I think there's a lot of ways that it goes right. More right for Gainwell than it goes right for Bucky, unfortunately. So, yeah, I'm with you on this one. That's why I thought this is such a great name to bring up. As you were talking, I did pull up 2 names besides Austin Eckler. Kareem Hunt Raheem Mostert. Neither of whom have jobs right now. Both just kind of hanging out. Both could be easily signed off the street to a team that needs some help midseason, injury, suspension, whatever, and they are capable bodies. So those are two other names just to kind of think about. I did just look on the waiver wire in one of our leagues, and I was like, do I pick up Austin Eckler? I mean, he doesn't have a job, so I'm not going to. He'll probably be there, but
he's on a couple of my. If he gets signed to a team, he's such a name that
I mean,
I picked him up because I'm gonna.
Honestly, a part of me is like, I should just go do it. So let's talk about the wide receiver position. We actually already mentioned this player, ironically, which was not intended, and I'm not a big Packers guy, but it's Matthew Golden, right? I know you said you had just drafted him in your league that you got on the clock right here. To me, Matthew Golden is a value for two reasons. Number one, he is mispriced. This is a starter. Right. This is the wide receiver 54. He's going 165th overall. He's going in like the middle of the 13th round. Now you just grabbed him you said you grabbed him in the 10th. That's fine.
So this is
that's realistic.
It's half PPR, so he's going to go at a slightly different price. But
keep in mind when I'm giving you some of these ADPs and where these guys are going, this is an average across ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, like all the different platforms. And if you guys don't play exclusively on Sleeper, and you've done any drafts on Yahoo and ESPN, you know that their ADP it's way different. It's just crazy out of whack. So I think realistically, if I want to give a more accurate ADP, he's probably going in the 10th, 11th round, and that's fine, right? So
like 6 wide receivers down. He was just better click for me.
My point is this. He's mispriced because he's a starter in 2 wide receiver sets. He was a first-round wide receiver, and whether or not he's a first-rounder or not doesn't really make a big difference. We've seen plenty of players drafted in the first-round bust. We've seen 7th-round guys, Isaiah Pacheco, the guys that have come that can become fantasy relevant. So that part's not super important to me. What is important to me is this. Romeo Doubs is gone. Tucker Kraft is still the guy. I believe Tucker Kraft will still be the guy and the target and the focal point of this offense. We just talked about Josh Jacobs. We don't know what's going on there. Marshawn Lloyd is a value, but let's just be clear. If Josh Jacobs is gone, Marshawn Lloyd is a huge downgrade from Josh Jacobs. Even though he could be a screaming value and he could bring fantasy relevance to your team this season, and that's why you should pick him, it's not like he's going to be in the RB1 conversation. That's ridiculous. That's not going to happen, right? You're hoping that you've got a late round guy that's going to be in the RB2 conversation, and you're going to put him in your flex spot, or he's on Monday Night Football and you're down 6 points and you need 30 yards and a touchdown to win your Monday Night Football matchup, right? So Christian Watson's never played a full season, Kendall. You know this. Never. Never 0. Never has happened. Guess what's going to happen? Christian Watson is going to miss time. Book it. Bet on it. It is guaranteed. Golden disappointed you last year. He disappointed to the tune of 44 targets. Ugh. To which he turned into 29 for 361 and a goose egg. It's an atrocious stat line. Absolutely atrocious. He has not scored a professional touchdown in a regular season game, but he is the starting wide receiver in 2 wide receiver sets. We don't know what Tucker Kraft is going to look like right now. The assumption is even if Tucker Kraft is out there week 1, it is going to take him some time to ramp it back up to get back to the form that you saw Tucker Kraft in last year, where he was a league winner, where he was dominating the tight end position. What if Jacobs gets off to a slow start? What if he has a midseason suspension? What happens when and if Watson misses time? So there's not only a good player, but you have a guy that has a path to being the wide receiver 1 for his team. And even if Christian Watson is healthy, he's starting. If Christian Watson misses time, that benefits Jaden Reed. That doesn't hurt Christian Watson. If anything, that probably elevates his target share. Sure, it elevates Tucker Kraft's target share as well, but there's still less mouths to feed, and that's always been the biggest issue in Green Bay. Is there's too many cooks in the kitchen and none of them are an alpha. You don't have a Jamar Chase and a bunch of other guys. You have a bunch of guys. That's what you have. And so I think at the end of the day, what you're looking at here is the potential to not only outperform your ADP, but you could be looking at 600 to 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. And in the double-digit rounds, I'll take that. Kendall, who you got at the wide receiver?
So at the wide receiver position, I'm going to go ahead and say Casey Concepcion. One of my absolute biggest risers right now. And this was something I was looking at even before, we saw him with that end around in the most recent preseason game. The real thing on Casey Concepcion is that, he's a yak guy, right? So we have a really bad offensive situation. We have really, really atrocious quarterback play. So it's hard to find values. My take on Stafford earlier is just sometimes the safest bet historically is just betting on good offenses. So how can you find a screaming value on a bad offense? Because that should be risky. And it is. And I think that's really inherently what bakes where his price kind of moves. But the idea is if he's going to get these manufactured touches, the end around that in the preseason went for a touchdown, but I don't know why they wouldn't pull stuff like that if it's working out in the regular season. Stuff like those end arounds is also a situation that should dramatically help a team like the Browns that has that bad quarterback play. So creating these manufactured touches for a yak guy means you can get him the ball before the quarterback has a chance to mess it up and kind of make something happen. And so if the quarterback plays bad enough, his skill set is phenomenal for what it can do. He's also just more talented than Jerry Jeudy, in my opinion. And I think there's a lot of reason to believe that he's probably just going to surpass Jerry Jeudy reasonably enough in a year that they already know is lost anyways. So there's every incentive to get the rookie more meaningful snaps, more looks. One of the reasons there were some Eagles players that we were fading in previous years, it's because I thought their defense was going to be so good that the fourth quarter wasn't going to matter, right? AJ Brown on a former Eagles team sometimes just wouldn't even play the fourth quarter because they were up, and it's the Eagles defense and their run game, and the game is just virtually over, even if it's only 8 points. It felt like that. I don't think Casey's going to come off the field if they're losing by 30 points and the game's over. You got to get the rookies involved. So when you look at all the different ways that the team can use him and would be incentivized to use him, plus just being a natural talent in and of himself, he's a guy that I'm really, really happy just reaching a full round on. It's in a pocket of players where there's guys that they're listed higher in ADP, but they're not fun clicks. They're not league winning. They're kind of just guys that will finish with a reasonable amount of points, but you don't usually want to start them. They're kind of vanilla. Casey's a guy that I think it's a riskier floor, but where you're drafting him, he's if anything, he's the first guy off your bench, and that's probably there's a league where he is actually my last flex, but I'm fine with it because I reached a full round on him and I'm happy with the rest of my draft. So I don't know, value because where he goes in the double-digit rounds, I'm loving taking him in the 10th everywhere I can go. He's my favorite pivot when I can't get. We love Josh Downs. Matthew Golden's a guy that I really agree with Phil's take on. When either of those guys get sniped, and maybe Dejon Stribling already went, I like this pocket a lot. I'm honestly just going to reach for Casey at that point. I'm only taking my guys in this range. And me and Phil just mentioned that there's some running backs I can still take a little bit later that I really, really like. So I'm fine just reaching on a guy at a tier of wide receivers where there's a couple names, but they're popular, like Josh Downs, where I need another name that goes a little bit later. Sign me up for some Casey. I'm probably going to have at least a 33 or 40+% share of him this year just because of where he's at right now. I'm 2 for 3 on drafting him.
And I just want you said this, so I want to make sure we bring this up. The Dejon Stribling didn't make this show because the hype is getting out of control. Like there's a world, Kendall, where I saw it. I said I wasn't going to do any more best ball drafts, but I felt like I needed to just throw a couple more in there because there was still some good value left. But I had to take Dejon Stribling in the 8th round today because I had the Brock Purdy. I started with Christian McCaffrey. I stacked him with Brock Purdy. And my choices were George Kittle or Dejon Stribling. And I knew I was like, you got to take one, otherwise, and the other one's not getting back to you. But I had taken Colston Loveland. So I was like, I don't want to take a second tight end right now because I need the wide receiver depth. I'll take Stribling. But the 8th round, it was the 9th round. I apologize. I took Purdy in the 8th. Mm-hmm. I felt fine because I had built so many, high value running backs. I started with Christian McCaffrey, and Omarion Hampton got back to me.
Really reacting to the center news.
Yeah. So it was just okay. Anyway, I know this is best ball. My point being is I do see a world in the next 10 days, because that's when the majority of drafts are going to happen, is in the next 10 days. Somebody out there is going to take DeJon Stribling in the 7th round. It's going to happen. Someone's going to do it. It may not be in any of your leagues, but like, you're going to hear about it. You're going to read about it on Twitter. You're going to see someone post it on Instagram. Like, it's going to happen. And like, I'm trying to think. I had this earlier. I should have put it in the show doc. I apologize. My brain went blank. It was, it was Bill from last year. That's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of all the camp hype was screaming values for Bill, for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And all of a sudden he goes in like the 4th or 5th round. Now I get it's a running back, so positionally it makes a big difference. But it just, I'm not saying Stribling's a bad player. I just, like, are you telling me that you're really going to pass on more established players? Like, Rome's in the 6th round right now. Blake Corum's in the 7th round right now.
Where he's going, you're starting to buy him, like, not at his ceiling, but closer to it than just makes sense. Like, if I'm looking at like this actual draft board, right, where he's starting to go, and I completely agree, people are starting to take him like over Jordan Addison, who's like a locked and loaded 2, very nice talent. Like, that's some people are just like, I don't really know what to do here, so I'm going to make a fun pick, right? I kind of mentioned, like, I'm not in on Godwin, but like,
that was the name I was just looking at. That's funny you said that.
Probably a lot of a better bet to do something like floor and ceiling combo are kind of there for him, right? Like, him versus like a Michael Wilson. That's maybe where you can start getting into like, well, it's not like we love that Cardinals offense, right? So, you know, it starts to be justifiable, but I'm starting to list guys that are going in the 9th at this point.
Let's play King of the Hill.
Him versus DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is another gross name. God.
Yeah, that's so funny you just said that. I would still take DK.
I would. It's not close for me, actually.
What about Michael Pittman?
Yeah, I'd still take Pittman. Like, okay. It's a 2-target funnel offense where I think their floor, like, I don't think DK or Michael Pittman leave this year with less than 175 fantasy points. Like, I think their range is like 175, 215. Like, if you just look at like season totals, I think Stribling is a guy that, like, if you just look, I just pencil him in for like 160, 170, 172 if I'm looking at projections. I just don't see all the worlds where he gets there. And not to mention, I just think that he is going to have a woefully low touchdown total in an offense with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Mike Evans. In what world in the red zone are they throwing the ball to Stribling over Mike Evans? It's disrespectful to Mike Evans if you even consider it.
Ricky Pearsall had 193 fantasy points last year. Steph Diggs, 186. Jordan Addison, 181. I'm looking at a full PPR league right here from 2025, just the wide receiver position. Michael Pittman, 171. Khalil Shakir, 174. Let's play King of the Hill, because
174. Khalil Shakir's 174. That's kind of the range I look at, right? But I think like Pittman disappointed, especially down the stretch, and DK, and we got to look at like games missed too. I think there changes a little bit, but
listen, I like Stribling a lot, not just because I'm a Niners fan, but because I do think it can work. I really do. I mean, I think there's a world where he realistically is the wide receiver 2 for this team. Yeah. I mean, Mike Evans is hurt right now, but like when Mike Evans comes back, he's the one. Debo's Debo. Like, but yeah, it's right. It's like, what are you going to do? You're not going to get 100 targets to Christian McCaffrey. You're not. I mean, he's probably going to catch 70. I mean, this is what Christian McCaffrey does. So
I just wish he was going around Huge and Dobbs.
That's so funny, because
like that's the tier I want him at, because that's where I want to take him. But everyone else is I just beyond there.
That's the names that I was just. I knew you would think the same way. Like, I was just going to give you both of those names, because that's, if I'm looking at this right now. Ready? Stribling's climbing the hill. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Coker.
I got to go Stribs because the quarterback situation there's so
agreed. Bad. Shaheed.
I'll take Stribs there.
Debo.
Stribs.
Xavier Worthy.
See here, I got to go Worthy. I got to go with the upside of Patrick Mahomes, and I'm off for Rasheed Rice. Like that. That's where it's like, and I should have Stribs higher, but like
I would take Stribling over Worthy, and that's not because I hate Worthy. It's because I've seen Worthy.
Mm-hmm. Let's go with Stribs for now. He's literally got the banged up hip and everything.
I'd rather take the upside of what I haven't seen versus the upside, or I shouldn't say upside, but versus the what I have, which has disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've already done the Xavier Worthy thing. Like I think I might go for that. That might be a average range of outcome for me. I think Xavier Worthy loses 9 times out of 10, but I might hold out for the one. So keep going.
Jaden Reed.
So that's where I'm dribbling. I'm dribbling there.
Let me give you this name. I think I know what you'll say, but this is an interesting name. Jordan Tyson.
Ooh, depends. I mean, obviously you need an IR spot for Tyson.
That's my point.
I'm kind of nice on. I would rather take the shot on Tyson. I think.
Okay.
I think Tyson's a bigger league winner. I think. Like if he comes back down the stretch and does some crazy stuff.
But you're waiting for. You're right. You need the IR spot, but you're waiting 4 to 6 weeks at a minimum.
If it's a league where I went hyper running back, like I might want to.
Yeah, I think people are going to take Stribling only because they want a player that they can play.
Yeah, like he's super flexible. You know, like I have no idea about his actual in-life flexibility or tactileness there, but he is very ready to get in your flex and do like the Tyler Lockett thing and just get it done. He's the most like not Juwan Johnson. Actually, that's a pretty good example, but yeah, what Juwan or what Kayshon Boutte was doing for a little while, like you could probably pencil him in for 10 fantasy points more often than you can't.
I mean, I agree with you. If it's a choice between Huge or Stribling, I'm going to take Stribling, right? But like I'd have a hard time taking Stribling over Wandale. Mm-hmm. I think I would still think about it. They're both going to be the 2 for their team. It's not a great passing volume going on with Cam Ward. Carnell Tate's the target alpha there. There's no tight end that's really. I mean, don't want to hear about Gunnar Helm. The running backs are garbage. So it's like, but Brian Daboll loves Wandale. It's his guy. They signed him because of Daboll. You know what I mean? So it's like, It's hard for me there. Jordan Addison, Chris Godwin.
It's a tough range, dude.
It's a tough range.
It's a really tough range.
But I think a lot of people are going to do it because they want the hotness. It's what you and I talked about last week on the League Winners show. People want to be right. They want to say to their league mates, I told you so. I've been on him since camp, or I drafted him. You all laughed at me in the dynasty draft because I took him in the 2nd round and you all told me I was a moron. Ha ha. I get it. Everyone wants to put some, meme in the chat and troll their friends because they want to be right. But this is why we play. This is the whole point of fantasy. It's a range of outcomes, right? It's a higher percentage bet on better players. Right? Like
if I get him in the 10th, I'm doing it. 9th, maybe 8th is getting too rich for me, man.
But
we were talking about taking a QB there in some spots too. Like
that was what I was just going to say.
Dak Prescott or Stribling if he's around.
Correct. George Kittle or Stribling if he's around. Positional advantage with the tight end position, which is a huge advantage in fantasy. So it's like I'm not sitting here saying anything negative about Stribling, and I told you he almost made this show. The reason he didn't is because I think everyone's already on him, and the hype is too hot right now. Like Bill Krosky-Merritt going in the 4th round last year was atrocious. And if you read anything, what's going on with the Commanders. Every single player on the Commanders is on my do not draft list right now. There will not be a Washington Commander on my team. It is not going to happen. I don't care who it is. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. So the fact that somebody came out today, one of the beat reporters, and said this is the worst offensive line they've ever seen for Washington. And we already know Larry Tunsil's gone for the year.
I have very little of number 5 in Dynasty. So
I have him in 1 league in Dynasty, and I'll be honest, it's a league where I'm rebuilding, and I don't want to tell you what I traded for him. You already know what I traded. It actually really is hurting my soul right now what I traded for him. So I did get another piece out of it, which makes me feel a little bit better, but the quarterback that I switched out, I wish I had back. So
look, we got the 49ers guy here. We're going to talk Striblings. If there was a Bears equivalent of that, we'll be talking about it. If I have to do a little Xavier Thomas take in the middle of the season, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I think as we get into the kind of to wrap this show up, we started the show by talking about what a definition of a value. A definition of a value can be whatever it means to you. You can define your own version of value. You said it earlier, if you get Puka at the 106 instead of the 103, that could be a screaming value, right? And it is. And I think at the end of the day, there is quote unquote value in every single round of the draft. I think when we're looking at players that stand out for true value, it's who has a chance, like you were saying earlier, with guys that are reaching 20 spots, but who has a chance to realistically finish 20 spots ahead of their ADP when you can get a 2-round discount on that player, because that's ultimately what you're getting. Malik Neighbors almost made this show, but I don't want to sit here and do a Malik Neighbors take, because again, if you need to know that Malik Neighbors is good at football, you're either brand new to fantasy or you've been living under a rock for the last 3 years. But if you can tell me, Kendall, and I think the news is more positive now. I know he left training camp today, but it sounded like it was more precautionary. But if you could tell me right now that I could get Malik Neighbors in the 3rd round, and I don't think you can. I think you have to take him in the 2nd. But this is a guy that if he was fully healthy is probably going at the end of the 1st. I was just looking at the board, probably going at the 109. Don't you think? Don't you think Neighbors is going ahead of... I would take... If Neighbors was fully healthy, I would take Neighbors over Achane. I would certainly take him over Genty. I would probably take Neighbors over Justin Jefferson. I'm
if he was
not
fully
stoked on this
healthy,
Kyler Murray thing. I'm not.
I think he's somewhere he's like after CD, but before Justin Jefferson, and then he's
place for him.
If you have to go RB, you'll fade him. But if you're palatable, you would look at a Neighbors as a potential kind of league winner. Yeah, I don't disagree.
100%. I mean, so to me, that's somebody even in the 3rd. Like I would take Malik Neighbors over Drake London because of the quarterback situation. I want nothing to. I love Drake London in Dynasty because I believe that the Falcons are going to be terrible again this season. I think they're going to have a top 5 pick, and I think they're probably going to reset the quarterback position again.
Yep.
Because it's all, you cannot tell me that your future of this franchise is Michael Penix and your short-term interim play is Tua Tagovailoa. Get you what you know what you will get? Fired. And they already made a coaching staff change. Matt Ryan's the president of football operations or whatever they're calling his title now. Like, you think Matt Ryan's going to sit there and go, yeah, this is it? No fucking way, dude. No way.
I think they've already mentally. Big organizations make the decisions well before you see it happening. I think they've already mentally decided, like, hey, we're going to be drafting more quarterbacks here and hope. Look, when you look around the league, right, everyone wants to hit on a dart or a shuck. Even like Beck and Allard look like they had a little juice, and if they end up being good, where they got taken is an absolute steal. I think you're going to see a lot more teams that are just consistently clicking the button because some of them work out, right?
This is the 27 class is a huge quarterback class. Don't forget that Baker Mayfield is going to be a free agent next year. And I think he goes to the Rams if Ty Simpson sucks, and we don't know what Ty Simpson is because of that Sean McVay connection. But Baker Mayfield's not exactly a guy who hides his feelings. And if he could, quote unquote, stick it to the Bucs after they don't pay him for the 2nd time, if Baker Mayfield was the starting quarterback of the 2027 Atlanta Falcons, I am Drake London to the moon.
There are some teams that are going to go all in on Baker. They're going to go all in. They're going to say, 100%. Dude, actually, this is a really safe buy. Like, we've already seen the absolute worst, and he's fixed that.
You know who's going to be you know who's going to be in super hard on Baker next year? Steelers, because they're going to do the same thing they always do. They're going to win enough games that they're not going to be close enough to the front of the draft to reset their quarterback position with one of these top guys, because the Jets are going to take a quarterback. Arizona's going to take, you know what I mean? Like, those guys aren't going to take Baker. Those guys want the young kid. They want the hotness. They want the rookie contract. And those are the teams that are going to be picking.
Arizona desperately wants to be right. They're like an annoying dynasty player, right? Like, no amount of what you give them for this pick, they're going to pick and stick and be smarter than you. So
but the Miami Dolphins, if they're picking in the top 5, and they will be, and they have a quarterback,
got a lot of money.
They already paid Willis $52 million. They've got a quarterback that's not playing for him that's making $100 million. If I'm the Dolphins, I trade down. And unless you just think that Jeremiah Smith is there and he's your future because they don't have any wide receivers, and that could happen. That's fair.
It would be so sick to draft just dope skill position players and then buy Baker. Like, oh my goodness.
Not a bad idea. Anyway, let's wrap the show here. Really quickly, Kendall, let's not go too long because we are coming up on the end of the show, but is there anyone just really briefly that we didn't get to that almost made the list for you tonight? Or maybe not necessarily a player take, but is there a name you just want people like, hey, if this guy's there in the 8th round, 9th round, double digits, not an auto pick, but like, hey, make sure that you leave the draft with this guy. Is there one player for you that stands out we didn't talk about tonight? Because there's one.
I can just lightning like 2-3 no player takes here. We love Javonte. DeAndre Swift is becoming like a cheaper version of Javonte with a similar setup that goes around later. Javonte starting to go earlier and earlier. If I miss him, getting Swift around later looks pretty good. I feel like I'm going to say your guys. So I'll throw 2 quick more out here, but Ramondre is starting to become a screaming value for me. Hendy's blah, blah, blah.
Great name.
Honestly, Drake May is lower in my QB rankings than I'm comfortable with. But I I do think Ramondre is just going to have a very serviceable season. He's not exciting, and I don't think he'll ever be, but I do think he's a much safer version of Chuba Hubbard, and is also a more talented player that I think gets forgotten. So those are just two names at running back. And I don't know, I feel like I've said pretty much all of my stuff, and we just talked about it earlier. Like DK Metcalf is a name that is on a gross team, but he goes so late. He's never going to win a league, in my opinion, but he's starting to become this like weird value with how many running backs I want to take. I have to find some gross picks. So I guess he's kind of one for me. And Chris Olave, if his ADP doesn't absolutely go to the moon, right now, Chris Olave is in a spot where we did a league winner show when I couldn't do this, but Olave probably would have made my league winner as a guy that I think is probably going to finish as like wide receiver 5 or 6, just like pencil him in. I really think it's going to happen.
I want to give two quick names. One of them's kind of an easy low ball name, low hanging fruit, if you will, but it's Kyle Monangai. I know everyone knows about him. I know that's not a sneaky take, and it's not meant to be sneaky.
It's meant to depressed though. That's great.
That's why I brought the name up, is because the injury history isn't there, but the injury that he has right now is lingering into camp. And like I said earlier, I said this a couple minutes ago, this is what we're talking about with Stribling. People don't want to put a guy on their bench they have to wait for 5 or 6 weeks. They just don't want to do that. They want points. They want points in their roster because they know they got to win the first couple weeks to get in the playoffs. And you do. Monangai is a player that if right now he's going in the 9th round, if I can get him in the 9th, assuming that the Corums and the Gainwells and, the Algiers are off the board, I'm okay with waiting on that because I believe wholeheartedly in that offense, and I want pieces of that offense. So that to me is a player that I would take that risk on of like, okay, may not be available for a while, but second half of the season, that's a big player to have. The other name is kind of a sneaky name, and no one ever talks about him because, again, it's not sexy. But it's that relationship we talk about with early wide receiver, later round quarterback. This is early wide receiver, new hotness, mid-round quarterback. I want to talk about Romeo Doubs for 30 seconds.
Yeah, I like that.
Romeo Doubs is an interesting name for two reasons. Number one, he's a starter. Number two, it's a good offense. Drake May's a good quarterback, and everyone is in on A.J. Brown, and that's fine. You should be. I love A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown will probably land on a couple of my rosters in redraft simply because I think he's a target earner. I don't think his price is outrageous. In the middle of the second round, I do think there's a tier break. If it's A.J. Brown and George Pickens, I'm taking A.J. Brown. If it's A.J. Brown, Rashee Rice, Drake London, those are the names, and that's what it will be. I'm taking A.J. Brown, and I'm moving on. It's not even a decision for me, right? It's an easy auto pick in the middle of the second round. But what if Travion and Ramondre do split? It's very possible. I know Travo's hurt. I know he's got issues with pass blocking. Hunter Henry is an okay player, but like there's just not enough competition for me in New England for anyone to displace
4,000
Romeo Doubs
somewhere, right?
That's what I mean. So it's like everybody's in on A.J. Brown, great, and we never talk about injury. Everything presumes health, but for a while there in Dynasty this summer, Kendall, you could get a pretty early second round pick for Romeo Doubs because everyone assumed he was going to be, if not the guy, a major piece of the offense until that, we knew the A.J. Brown thing would happen. It just wasn't official. But it's like, let's just say if A.J. Brown's unavailable, this is not a waiver wire player. You're not getting Romeo Doubs off the waiver wire. So I like Romeo Doubs in the double-digit rounds. I think he's an interesting player because I do think his value will hold into the season. He's not someone that I would take a flyer on of like, oh, he sucked for the first 2 weeks, I'm going to drop him. That's not the kind of value player that he is. Of late round flyer, could be something, could be nothing. I think could be something, could still be a flex, and that's his floor. So Romeo Doubs is an interesting name in the double-digit rounds to at least peek at if you're a little thin at the wide receiver position. I think that could be a good player to grab as your wide receiver 5. I think that'd be awesome.
You could sneakily outscore with your Michael Wilsons, your Jordan Addisons of the world, your Jaden Reeds. I think he's got a clearer path to it. Actually, he could outscore
both. He could outscore both the Pittsburgh guys. There is that would be an interesting. That will be Kendall. Let's clip that. That would be an interesting thing. 6-8 weeks into the season, everything presumes health, but like, where is Romeo Doubs on a PPG and what wide receiver, 32, 34, 28, what wide receiver number is he relative to where both the Pittsburgh guys are at the midway point of the season? That would be interesting to keep an eye on. So that is going to do it for the show tonight. Thanks for tuning in to our 2026 values episode. Again, we have broken down all of the positions for the league winners, as well as the do not draft list. So if you are prepping, as I know you are, for your drafts here this coming weekend, and of course next week, please go check those shows out as a part of your draft prep process. And to everybody at the Fantasy Football Network, thanks for joining another episode of The Extra Point. We out.